Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Let's look into the first question. Consider the following statements with respect to Chilka Lake. It is the largest coastal lagoon in the world. It was designated the first Indian wetland of international importance under the Ramsar Convention. It is the largest wintering ground for birds in the Indian subcontinent. Which of the above statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 and 3 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference of the Chilika Lake. Let us try and understand what are these options. When we look into the first option, it says it is the largest coastal lagoon in the world. This is the wrong statement. Why? Because it is the second largest coastal lagoon in the world and not the largest. When it comes to India, yes, it is the largest coastal lagoon in India, but when you compare it at the global scale, it is the second largest coastal lagoon in the world. The second statement is right. It was designated the first Indian wetland of international importance under the Ramsar Convention. And third statement is also right because it is the largest wintering ground for the birds in the Indian subcontinent. During the winter season, you have many birds who migrate from the Russian part. They also migrate from the Central Asian part. Why? Because they are drawn to the vast mud fields and abundant fish stock in Chilka Lake, which is why they migrate from the cold temperate regions to the Chilka Lake. Also remember, as part of the preliminary examination, remember about Manjala Jodi Bird Sanctuary, which is a village located on the northern banks of Chilka Lake in Odisha, and you also have Nalbana Bird Sanctuary as well, and this happens to be the core area of Ramsar designated wetland of the Chilka Lake. What does Nalbana stands for? It stands for a weed covered island in the Odia language. It was declared a bird sanctuary under the Wildlife Protection Act. Thousands of birds enter this particular area during the migratory season. So remember, Chilka Lake is in the state of Odisha, and this happens to be the largest coastal lagoon in India and the second largest coastal lagoon in the entire world. Now let's look into the next practice question. Chilai a weather phenomenon, is related to dreaded evening thunderstorms in Bengal and Assam, dry and oppressing winds blown in northern plains, period of harsh cold conditions in Kashmir, violent dust squalls that occur after monsoon in the northwestern parts of the Indo-Gangetic plain. Which of the statements best describes Abu Chile Kalan? This is nothing but a period of harsh cold conditions in Kashmir. Why have we taken this practice question? Because the Hindu makes a mention of the Chilai Kalan. What is Chilai Kalan? This is a Persian word. It literally stands for major cold. December 21st is when it begins. It continues up until Jan 31st. When we speak about Chilai Kalan, it is nothing but harsh cold. Begins on 21st December, ends on 31st of Jan. The span is for a period of about 40 days. Then we have Chilai Kurd, which is called a small cold. It begins on 31st of Jan, goes up till 19th of Feb, and it is for a period of 20 days. Finally, we have Chile Bache, which is nothing but baby cold, which starts on 20th February and goes up till 2nd of March for about 10 days. So Chile Kalan is nothing but major cold that occurs in the region of Kashmir. The weather in Kashmir Valley continues to remain dry and cold with minimum temperatures even going below the freezing point as well. Remember, the valley during this particular period faces shortage of essential goods. Some of the essential goods and its prices even skyrocket as well. That is because most of the vehicles which carry goods are stuck because of the cold weather and blockage of roads. Now let's look into the next practice question. With respect to financial powers of the governor, which of the following statements are correct? Money bill can be introduced in the state legislature only with his prior recommendation. He can make advances out of the consolidated fund of the state to meet any expenditure. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is one only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference of the governor. When we speak about the governor has multiple roles that he plays. He has the legislative power, he has the executive power, he also has the financial powers as well. When we speak about the financial powers, the governor sees that the annual financial statement is laid before the state legislature. Money bills can be introduced in the state legislature only with the prior recommendation. Without his recommendation, it cannot be introduced in the state legislature. Then we have no demand for a grant which can be made except on his recommendation. He can make advances not out of the consolidated fund of the state, but instead it is the contingency fund of the state to meet the unforeseen expenditure. Since the second statement makes a mention of consolidated fund of the state, this is a wrong one because it is the contingency fund that he would be able to withdraw the money from in case of unforeseen expenditure. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements about Right to Information Act are incorrect? The Act orders that public authorities have to publish the information to the public on regular intervals voluntarily. If information sought concerns the life or liberty of a person, it shall be supplied within 72 hours. If information is required from intelligence organizations alleging corruption or human rights violation, these organizations are bound to provide such information. Which of the statements are incorrect? Since it is asking for the incorrect statement, the answer to this would be 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Indian Express makes a reference of RTI. When we look into the first option, it says the Act orders that public authorities have to publish the information to the public on regular intervals voluntarily, which means on a suo motu basis. The public authorities on a periodic basis will also have to give information so that the public don't have to ask this information from those public authorities. So the first statement is right. If information sought concerns the life and liberty of a person, it shall be supplied within 72 hours. This is a wrong statement. Why? Because this has to be supplied within 48 hours. Generally, in the normal course, if information is asked by the applicant, such information will have to be given by the public authorities within a time period of 30 days. But when it is a question of life or liberty of a person, such information will have to be given within 48 hours. It is not 72 hours, but instead it is 48 hours. So the answer to this particular question is 2 only, because the second option happens to be a wrong one. Third option says if information is required from intelligence organizations alleging corruption or human rights violation, these organizations are bound to provide such information. What does this mean? Generally, there is an exemption given to the intelligence agencies. So if questions are asked to the intelligence agencies by the public asking for some information, these operational information need not be given by the intelligence agencies. However, if there is a human right violation, in case there is a corruption issue happening in that intelligence agency, in such a case, these exemptions are not allowed for these public authorities, which means to say the intelligence agency, in case of a corruption or a human right issue, they have to give information to the general public if information is asked. However, if it is about the operations of the agency, such information need not be revealed by these authorities. Now let's look into the next practice question. The term event horizon, singularity, string theory and standard model are sometimes seen in the news in the context of observation and understanding of universe, study of the solar and lunar eclipses, placing satellites in the orbit of the earth, origin and evolution of living organisms on the earth. The answer to this is observation and understanding of the universe. This is a straightforward question, and this is a previous year question from the year 2017. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is baby loans. What are we speaking about? We are speaking about the child policy that China has come up with. Back in the 1980s, China had a one child policy. This was a program in China that limited most Chinese families to one single child. This was an initiative taken back in the year 1980. Why? Because they felt that the Chinese population increase could hamper the progress, economic growth of the China, which is why they introduced this particular program of one child policy policy in 1980. The policy was implemented effectively in the urban areas, but it was not implemented in the rural areas to that level of efficiency. In order to ensure that it is also implemented even in the rural areas of China, they started incentivizing families. Financial incentives were provided to these people. Contraceptives was widely available. In spite of this, if people do not follow the one child policy, sanctions were also imposed on such couple as well. So back in 1980s, because the Chinese felt that it could hamper their economic progress, they came up with one child policy. But due to this policy, the birth rate fell, the sex ratio became skewed towards the males. Why? That is because of the traditional preference for the male children. Due to this, abortion of female fetuses rose. So did the number of girls started depreciating over a period of time. In fact, these girls were also put in orphanages and were even abandoned as well. These were some of the problems with the one child policy that China had initiated back in the year 1980. And as you can see from the statistics given here, the numbers start dropping in the 1980s. It was at the peak, and during the period of 2000 it gradually goes, and in 2016, in order to overcome this particular issue, they introduced two child policy. Why did they introduce two child policy? That is because China's population was growing at a slower pace. This led to labor shortages. This also led to drop in the consumption levels, impacting the country's future economic outlook as well. In order to overcome this, they came up with a two child policy. But the two child policy in itself was not effective. So what does the government do? The government introduces what is called as the three child policy. But this three child policy that China has initiated now may not work, say some of the skeptics. Why? That is because of the cost of living increasing. These children will have to be provided the education. Parents may not be able to provide this education because of the cost of the living issues, and at the same time they also have to support the aging parents as well. And also in China, they have a very strict labor law as well, and they also have long working hours, since they feel that they would not be able to take care of their children. What we have is that this two child policy or three child policy may not be effective, say the skeptics. In order to overcome this issue as well, China's demographic issues have been dropping over a period of time. Because they need people to work in the near future, the government in certain provinces is looking at providing financial incentives as well. What are these financial incentives? If you look into the northeastern provinces of Jilin or Liaoning or Heilongjiang, there are conditions where these people do not have work in that particular area. So what do? They migrate from these northeastern states of China to another place where they have to work efficiently. However, during this particular process, couples do not want to start off with a family. In order to make sure that they start off with a family, have 2 to 3 kids, Jilin in Northeast China is offering married couple bank loans of up to $31,400. This happens to be a financial incentive scheme taking place in the northeast part of China, where they are also providing married couples bank loans to overcome a declining population. Such is the condition in China that they are even promoting what is called as baby loans, so that people can start off with their family. They have 2 to 3 children, so that the declining population in China does not haunt their progress in the near future. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.